The next gardening contest. More laughter followed, and Harold could feel his heart sinking. He forced a smile, but inside he felt crushed. The humor was not funny. It was a mockery of his life's work. The laughter that filled the air felt like knives piercing through his dignity. He thought of all the late nights he had spent tending to the gardens, ensuring they were perfect for events like this, and now he felt reduced to a punchline. As the applause died down and Victor concluded his speech, Harold stood frozen at the back of the hall, his heart heavy with humiliation. The vibrant atmosphere around him faded into a blur as he turned and slipped out of the venue, the laughter still ringing in his ears, but now it was an echo of his pain. Outside, the night air was cool, and he took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm within him. He wandered toward the garden he had so lovingly tended, the moonlight casting a gentle glow over the flowers. Each petal and leaf held memories of his labor, moments of joy intertwined with the struggles of his life. As he walked through the garden, he remembered the first time he had planted the roses, each thorny stem a symbol of hard work and dedication. He recalled the pride he felt when the first blooms had opened, vibrant and full of life. But tonight, the beauty felt overshadowed by the sting of Victor's words. His mind drifted back to Sophia's earlier encouragement. "You're a part of the Titan family." The words were meant to uplift him, but they felt distant now. The laughter at the gala had cut deep, and he found himself questioning whether he truly belonged. Back at the small shed that served as his workspace, Harold rummaged through his things, hoping to find solace in the tools of his trade. As his fingers brushed against a piece of paper, he pulled it out and found it was a note from Sophia. "Harold," it read, "I just wanted to say how much I admire you. You bring beauty to Titan Corp in ways that are often overlooked. Keep your head up. Tomorrow is a new day, and you deserve to be heard." Reading her words, he felt a flicker of hope. Sophia's faith in him ignited something within him, a determination he hadn't felt in a long time. He closed his eyes, inhaling the scent of the earth and flowers around him, allowing the fragrance to wash over him like a balm. As the stars twinkled above, Harold made a silent promise to himself. He would not let Victor's mockery define him. He would find a way to reclaim his dignity, to speak up and remind everyone at Titan Corp of the importance of respect and appreciation for all contributions, no matter how small. Tomorrow was indeed a new day, and he would be ready to face it with courage. Harold stepped out of the grand Titan Corp gala, the chatter and laughter of the party fading behind him like echoes in a cavern. The night air was cool against his flushed cheeks, and the stars twinkled overhead, but he felt anything but light. He walked slowly through the garden he had nurtured for years, the moonlight casting soft shadows on the meticulously trimmed hedges and vibrant flower beds. Each bloom seemed to mock him with its beauty, a stark contrast to the humiliation he had just endured. "Why did I have to be there?" he muttered to himself, shaking his head as he passed a cluster of marigolds. "Why did Victor have to make a joke out of me?" The laughter of the executive still rang in his ears, a cacophony of derision that twisted his stomach into knots. He remembered Victor Ashford, the CEO, standing in front of the crowd, his confident demeanor radiating power as he praised the company's achievements. But then, in one careless moment, he had turned that power against Harold, pointing him out like a target. The laughter that followed had felt like daggers, cutting deep into his heart. As he made his way to the small shed where he kept his tools, Harold's mind replayed the moment over and over. He had been so proud to be part of the Titan Corp family, to contribute to something larger than himself. The garden was his canvas, and he had poured his soul into every petal and leaf, believing that his work mattered. But in that moment of public ridicule, it felt as if all his years of service had been reduced to a punchline. Once inside the shed, Harold leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. Memories flooded back. The first day he had stepped onto the Titan Corp grounds, the way he had marveled at the sprawling campus, and the determination that had fueled him to maintain its beauty. He remembered the satisfaction of a job well done, the compliments from passers-by, the quiet moments in the garden where he found peace among the roses and daffodils. Those memories were now tainted, overshadowed by the stinging laughter of the previous night. "Harold, are you all right?" A voice broke through his reverie. It was Sophia, the office manager, and one of the few people at Titan Corp who had always treated him with kindness and respect. She had a warm smile, and her eyes sparkled with genuine concern. "I'm fine, just tired," he replied, forcing a smile despite the heaviness in his chest. "You don't look fine," she insisted, stepping closer. "I saw what happened at the gala. That was uncalled for." Harold sighed deeply, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's just part of the job, I suppose. I'm used to it." But even as he said it, he felt the lie hang in the air. He had never gotten used to being treated like a lesser being. Sophia shook her head. "You shouldn't have to get used to that. You've put your heart and soul into this place. You deserve respect, just like anyone else here." Her words struck a chord within him, igniting a flicker of hope. "Thank you, Sophia. It's just hard to feel that way after last night." "Listen," she said, leaning against the doorway. "You've made a difference here. The garden is beautiful because of you. You matter more than those jokes. Don't let them take that away from you." Harold nodded, appreciating her support, but still feeling the weight of his humiliation. "I'll try to remember that. He hesitated, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was part of the family." "You are part of the family," Sophia reassured him. "Don't let one moment change that. You have a lot to offer, Harold. Maybe it's time to remind everyone of that." As Harold stood there, he felt something shift within him, a small ember of determination igniting. He took a deep breath, letting it fill his lungs, and nodded slowly. "You're right. I can't let this define me." The following morning, Harold arrived at the Titan Corp grounds earlier than usual. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a golden hue over the dew-kissed grass. He felt the cool breeze on his face, and for the first time since the gala, he smiled. The garden awaited him, a testament to his hard work and dedication. He set to work with a renewed sense of purpose. Each task became an opportunity to express himself, to transform the garden into something even more beautiful. As he trimmed the hedges, he imagined them growing taller and fuller, reaching toward the sky. He envisioned the flowers blooming in vibrant colors, their fragrances mingling in the air. "Hey, Harold!" called out a voice from behind. It was Mike, one of the maintenance workers. "You're out here early. What's the secret?" "Coffee," Harold chuckled, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Just trying to beat the heat, and maybe make something beautiful while I'm at it." Mike grinned, glancing around the garden. "You always do. This place wouldn't be the same without you. I heard about the gala. That was low, man." "Yeah, well, it happens," Harold replied, shrugging. "I'm just trying to shake it off." "Don't let it get to you," Mike said earnestly. "You've got a talent and people notice. We all do. Just keep doing what you love." Harold felt a swell of gratitude for the camaraderie among his colleagues. Their support was a balm to his wounded pride, and he found himself more determined than ever to channel his energy into his work. Throughout the day, he poured himself into every task, transforming the garden into an oasis of color and life. He pruned the rose bushes with care, ensuring that each bloom would flourish. He planted new flowers in vibrant shades, their petals a cheerful contrast against the green foliage. As he worked, he discovered a crumpled piece of paper buried beneath some old tools in the shed. Curious, he unfolded it to find a note from Sophia, written in her neat handwriting. It read, "Dear Harold, I just wanted to remind you how much you're appreciated. Your hard work brings joy to everyone who sees it. Don't ever forget that. Best, Sophia." Reading her words, Harold felt a warmth spread through him. Her kindness was like sunlight breaking through clouds, illuminating the shadows of his doubt. He folded the note and tucked it into his pocket, a reminder that he was valued and that his work mattered. Later that afternoon, As he took a break and sat on a bench overlooking the garden, Harold reflected on his journey. Each flower, each blade of grass, was a part of him, a testament to his dedication and passion. He realized that beyond the jokes and the humiliation, he had a legacy of his own, one built on hard work, artistry, and love for the earth. He could hear the distant chatter of employees in the office building, their voices mingling with the rustling leaves and chirping birds. He wanted to be heard, to share his story and remind others that everyone, regardless of their position, deserved respect and dignity. As the day came to a close, Harold felt a sense of resolve settle within him. He wasn't going to let the events of the gala define him. Instead, he would use them as fuel to rise above, to remind everyone of the importance of kindness and respect in the workplace. With a newfound determination, he returned to his tasks, moving with purpose as he envisioned the next steps a way to share his passion and experiences with his colleagues. Perhaps it was time for a change, a chance to elevate the conversation about dignity at Titan Corp. He felt ready to speak up, ready to transform his pain into purpose. As he finished for the day and walked toward the exit, he glanced back at the garden one last time, a smile creeping onto his face. The flowers swayed gently in the evening breeze, and for the first time since the gala, Harold felt a sense of hope. Tomorrow would be a new day, and he was ready to embrace it. As the sun rose over Titan Corp, its golden rays illuminated the meticulously crafted gardens that Harold had nurtured for over a decade. Each blade of grass, every vibrant flower, seemed to reflect the newfound resolve within him. He arrived at work that morning, a gentle breeze brushing against his skin, whispering promises of change. The lingering embarrassment from the previous night's gala still clung to him like a shadow, but he felt a flicker of determination igniting in his heart. "Morning, Harold," called out Jenna, one of the administrative assistants, as she passed by, her arms filled with files. "I love the flowers you planted by the entrance. They really brighten up the place." "Thank you, Jenna," Harold replied, a small smile breaking through his initial gloom. Her words, simple yet sincere, sent a wave of warmth through him. It reminded him that his work had value, that he was not merely the gardener, but an integral part of the Titan Corp family. He made his way to the garden, noticing the dew still glistening on the petals. As he knelt to prune a rose bush, he remembered the kind words written in the note from Sophia. She had always recognized the artistry in his work, and that day, her encouragement felt like a lifeline. "I can't let one moment of humiliation define me," he muttered to himself, gripping the pruning shears tightly. "I have so much more to give." With renewed passion, Harold dove into his work. Each snip of the shears felt more deliberate, more expressive. He began to visualize the garden not just as a collection of plants, but as a canvas waiting to be painted. "These flowers deserve to shine," he said aloud, speaking to the blossoms as if they were his old friends. "And so do I." As he worked, he recalled the journey that had brought him to this point. He had started at Titan Corp as a young man, filled with dreams of becoming a landscape architect. But life had taken him on a different path. He had faced challenges and setbacks, yet the joy of tending to the earth had always been his anchor. There was beauty in the small victories, a bloom that opened, a hedge that grew lush and green. With every task, he transformed the mundane into the extraordinary. During his break, Harold found himself sitting on a bench in the garden, a moment of respite amidst the labor. He gazed at the vibrant colors surrounding him, drawing inspiration from the life that thrived under his care. As he sipped his coffee, a few of his colleagues strolled by. "Hey, Harold," called out Tom, a fellow gardener. "I heard about the gala last night. That was pretty harsh." "What?" Victor said. "It was," Harold admitted, his gaze fixed on the flowers. "But I'm not going to let it get to me. I've been here too long to forget my worth." "Good for you," Sophia chimed in, joining the conversation. "You deserve to be recognized for all the effort you put in. Your work is incredible, Harold. We all see it." "Thanks, Sophia. That means a lot," he responded, looking up to meet her supportive gaze. "I just wish others did too. You know, a lot of us feel underappreciated, Tom added, leaning against the bench. I've been here for years, and it's like we're invisible sometimes. Exactly, Sophia said, nodding in agreement. It doesn't matter what your job title is. Everyone deserves respect. Harold felt a surge of solidarity in their words. It was as if a door had opened, allowing him to glimpse a larger narrative that connected them all. Maybe we should start talking about it more, he suggested, his voice gaining strength. We all have stories that deserve to be heard. Like a meeting or something? Tom proposed, a hint of enthusiasm creeping into his tone. Exactly, Harold exclaimed. We could share our experiences, support each other. It might just make a difference. As they discussed their ideas, Harold felt a sense of camaraderie blooming among them, a collective yearning for acknowledgement and respect. He realized that he was not alone in his feelings, and it fueled his desire to take action. He could no longer allow Victor's flippant remark to dictate his worth. It was time to reclaim his voice. Returning to his tasks, Harold worked with an intensity he hadn't felt in years. Each flower he tended carried the weight of his newfound purpose. As he trimmed, he could almost hear the whispers of his colleagues echoing in his mind, urging him to stand up for what they all believed in. This garden is more than just a job, he said to himself. It's a testament to our hard work and dedication. The hours flew by, and soon it was time to clock out. As Harold gathered his tools, Sophia approached him again. I've been thinking, she said, a thoughtful expression on her face. What if we put together a presentation for the next team meeting? We could share our stories, highlight the importance of every role in this company. That's a great idea, Sophia, Harold replied, his heart racing at the thought of not only sharing his story, but also giving others a platform to do the same. We could emphasize how each of us contributes to the bigger picture. It might just resonate with the higher-ups. Yes, Sophia exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. Let's gather a few more people who feel the same way, and we can create something impactful. Everyone deserves to be recognized. As they brainstormed, Harold felt a sense of exhilaration wash over him. This was a moment he had been waiting for, a chance to speak up, not just for himself, but for all those who felt marginalized in the workplace. He could feel the tension of the previous night beginning to melt away, replaced by a sense of purpose and clarity. I'll reach out to some of the others, Sophia said, jotting down notes. We can meet after work to start planning. Count me in, Harold said, a smile spreading across his face. Let's make this happen. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the garden, Harold left the office with a renewed sense of hope. He felt invigorated, ready to embrace the challenges ahead. He would no longer be merely the gardener. He would become the voice of change, a beacon of respect and dignity for everyone at Titan Corp. And as he walked home, he couldn't shake the feeling that something truly transformative was on the horizon, not just for him but for the entire company. The morning sun poured through the large windows of the Titan Corp conference room, casting long shadows on the polished wooden table. Harold stood just outside the door, his heart pounding as he gathered his thoughts. It was the day after the gala, and the memory of Victor Ashford's humiliating joke still stung like a fresh wound. He took a deep breath, trying to dispel the anxiety that gripped him. His hands trembled slightly, but he clenched them into fists, reminding himself of the support he had received from Sophia and his colleagues. Today was the day to speak out. As he stepped into the room, he was met with a sea of curious faces, all turning to regard him with a mixture of surprise and concern. The atmosphere was different than usual. The air was thick with tension, as if everyone sensed the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. Victor sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. He seemed momentarily taken aback by Harold's unexpected presence, but quickly masked it with a polite smile. "Harold," Victor said, his voice booming, yet lacking its usual confidence. "We weren't expecting to see you here today. Please take a seat." Harold hesitated, the invitation feeling both welcoming and intimidating. He glanced around the table, meeting the eyes of several co-workers, who nodded encouragingly. With a deep breath, he walked to the empty chair and sat down. The wood felt cool beneath his hands, grounding him as he prepared to speak. "Thank you, Victor," Harold replied, his voice steady but soft. "I appreciate the opportunity to address everyone today." Victor nodded, leaning back in his chair, but there was a flicker of tension in his posture. "Of course, we value every voice in this company." Harold could feel the weight of everyone's gaze on him, and he fought the urge to shrink back. Instead, he straightened his back and focused on the topic he had rehearsed in his mind all morning. "I want to talk about respect," he began, his voice gaining strength with each word. "Respect for all employees, regardless of their role in this company." A murmur rippled through the room, and Harold noticed Sophia sitting at the far end of the table, her expression one of encouragement. He felt a rush of warmth from her presence, as if her support was a tether anchoring him to the moment. "Last night," he continued, "I experienced something that I never expected from the leadership of Titan Corp. I was humiliated in front of my peers during the gala. It was a moment meant to celebrate our achievements, but instead, I became the punchline of a joke." He paused, letting the words sink in. The silence in the room grew heavy, as if everyone was holding their breath. Victor shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the smile fading from his face. "I've worked here for over 20 years, Harold said, his voice steady. "I've poured my heart and soul into this company. Every flower I've planted, every corner of the garden I've tended is a reflection of my dedication. Yet, in that moment, I was made to feel insignificant." Victor finally spoke, his tone defensive. "Harold, it was just a joke. You know how these events can be. Everyone was laughing. It was meant in good fun." "Good fun," Harold echoed, his voice rising slightly. "You might have seen it that way, but the impact it had on me was anything but amusing. It reminded me that, despite my years of service, my contributions can be dismissed in an instant." A tension-filled silence enveloped the room. Harold could see several heads nodding in agreement, and he pressed on. "I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. Many employees here work diligently behind the scenes, and yet we often feel invisible. I want to change that." Victor's expression shifted from defensiveness to contemplation. "What do you propose, Harold?" he asked, his voice now softer, almost curious. "I propose that we establish a culture of respect and recognition," Harold replied, emboldened by the gravity of the moment. "Let's create a system where every employee feels valued for their contributions, no matter how big or small. We should celebrate our diverse roles and recognize that everyone's work is crucial to our success." The room was silent, and Harold felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He could see the executives exchanging glances, some nodding subtly, while others appeared deep in thought. "Harold," Sophia finally interjected, her voice strong and clear, "I completely agree with you. I've often felt undervalued in my role, and I know many others feel the same way. We should collect stories from employees, share their experiences, and create a platform where everyone can feel heard." Nods of agreement rippled through the room again, and Harold felt a surge of hope. This was the support he had been longing for, a sense of solidarity that could amplify his message. Victor's expression softened further as he regarded Harold and Sophia. "I appreciate your passion for this, both of you. It's important that we have these conversations. But I need to ask, how do we implement this? What steps can we take to ensure that everyone feels valued moving forward?" Harold's heart raced as he realized that this could be the turning point he had hoped for. "We could start by holding regular meetings where employees can share their successes and challenges," he suggested. "Let's create a newsletter or a bulletin board dedicated to celebrating achievements across departments. It doesn't have to be grand gestures. It can be as simple as a shout-out for the hard work people put in every day." Victor nodded thoughtfully, his expression shifting from uncertainty to contemplation. "I like that idea," he said slowly. "It could help foster a more inclusive environment." As the discussion unfolded, Harold felt a sense of empowerment wash over him. He had been scared to speak up, fearing judgment and dismissal. But here he was advocating for change. He could see the executives engaging with the ideas, their faces reflecting a growing understanding of the importance of respect in the workplace. Let's also consider mentorship programs, Sophia added, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. Pairing newer employees with veterans can help foster a sense of community and support. It's about building relationships, not just business transactions. As the conversation continued, Harold felt a sense of camaraderie blossoming in the room. The initial tension was dissipating, replaced by a shared commitment to fostering a culture of respect and inclusion. He could see Victor nodding, his demeanor shifting from a defensive posture to one of openness. "Harold, Sophia," Victor said after a moment, "I appreciate your insights. I think it's clear that we need to make changes. I'd like to schedule a follow-up meeting to discuss how we can formalize these ideas and implement them across the company." Harold's heart soared at the prospect. This was the moment he had envisioned, the possibility of real change in the Titan Corp culture. "Thank you, Victor. I believe we can make a difference together." The meeting began to wind down, but the atmosphere felt charged with potential. Harold glanced around the table, meeting the eyes of his colleagues, who were now engaged in animated discussions about the ideas that had been shared. He felt a sense of belonging that had eluded him during the gala. As he stood to leave, Victor caught his eye and smiled, a genuine expression that felt like a bridge spanning the gap created by the previous night's events. "Harold, thank you for your bravery. It takes courage to speak up, and I admire that." Harold felt a rush of warmth at Victor's acknowledgement. "Thank you, Victor. I just want to ensure that everyone feels valued here." With that, Harold left the room, his heart lighter than it had been in days. As he walked down the hallway, he could hear the hum of conversation behind him, the buzz of hope and change. For the first time in a long while, he felt that he belonged not just as a gardener, but as a vital part of the Titan Corp family. The room was thick with tension as Harold stood at the front, his heart racing. The long conference table gleamed under the overhead lights, reflecting the worried faces of the executives. He could feel their eyes on him, some curious, others skeptical. Victor Ashford, the powerful CEO, sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. Harold took a deep breath, his palms clammy against the crisp fabric of his shirt. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice slightly trembling but resolute. "I stand before you today not just as a gardener of Titan Corp, but as a representative of every person in this company who has ever felt belittled or overlooked." He paused, glancing around the room, noting the subtle shift in posture among some of the attendees. Victor leaned forward, his brow furrowing as he processed Harold's words. "What do you mean, Harold?" he asked, his tone a blend of curiosity and defensiveness. The other executives shifted in their seats, their attention fully captured now. "I mean," Harold continued, gathering strength from the supportive gazes of a few colleagues, "that we are all part of a larger tapestry here at Titan Corp. Each thread, no matter how small, contributes to the beauty and functionality of the whole. My role as a gardener may seem insignificant compared to the work done in the boardroom, but it is vital nonetheless." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, and Harold noticed Sophia nodding, her expression one of encouragement. She had been the first person to reach out to him after the gala, her gentle words fostering the courage he now felt. He took a moment to compose himself before pressing on. "I remember coming to work every day, pouring my heart into maintaining these gardens," he said, his voice gaining strength. "Those flowers, those trees, they are living reminders of the hard work and dedication of every person at this company. Yet, when I was mocked just last night, it felt like all of that was reduced to nothing. It hurt deeply." Victor's expression shifted, a flicker of concern crossing his face. "I never intended to diminish your contributions, Harold," he replied, his tone more subdued. "It was a thoughtless joke, and I regret that it caused you pain." Harold nodded slowly, appreciating Victor's admission, but knowing that it needed more than just an apology. "It's not just about the joke, Victor. It's about the culture we create here. When humor is based on belittling others, it fosters an environment where people feel they cannot express themselves. Where they cannot be proud of their roles, Harold said, his voice rising with passion. Sophia stood up, her voice steady as she added, Harold is right. Many of us have felt this way. I've been in meetings where my ideas were brushed aside simply because I didn't have the same. He had spoken his truth, and in doing so, he had sparked a movement towards a more inclusive and respectful workplace. He exchanged smiles with Sophia, who beamed with pride, knowing that their shared courage had made a difference. Stepping out of the conference room, Harold felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted off his shoulders. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful about the future of Titan Corp and his place within it. The air in the conference room was thick with anticipation as Harold stood before his colleagues, his heart pounding in his chest. He had just finished his heartfelt speech about respect and dignity, and an intense silence enveloped the room. The executives exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of shock and contemplation. Victor Ashford, the CEO, sat at the head of the long table, his face inscrutable. But Harold could see a flicker of something in his eyes, perhaps regret or realization. As the silence stretched on, Harold felt an overwhelming wave of vulnerability wash over him. His hands trembled slightly at his sides, but he stood his ground, determined not to back down. He had bared his soul, and now he could only wait for the reaction. Finally, Victor broke the silence, leaning forward slightly in his chair. Harold, he began, his voice steady but low, I appreciate your courage to speak up today. It takes a lot of strength to address the truth, especially in a room like this. Harold's breath hitched in his throat. He had not expected such a direct acknowledgement from Victor. Thank you, sir, Harold replied, his voice a bit shaky. I think we all deserve to feel valued, regardless of our roles. We're all part of this company's success in one way or another. Victor nodded slowly, his brow furrowed as if he were processing Harold's words. You're right. We often forget how interconnected we all are. It's easy to overlook the contributions of those who work behind the scenes. He looked around the room, and Harold could see that some of the executives appeared uncomfortable, shifting in their seats. Sophia, who had been sitting quietly, suddenly stood up, her voice firm. I want to add to that, she said, her gaze locking onto Victor. Many of us have felt the same way as Harold. We've been overlooked and undervalued. It's time for us to change that. Her words hung in the air, a powerful echo of what Harold had just expressed. Harold felt a swell of gratitude toward Sophia. She had always been supportive, but now she was stepping up in a way that he hadn't anticipated. He could sense that others were beginning to stir as well, their expressions shifting from surprise to contemplation. Thank you, Sophia, Victor replied, his tone slightly more serious. It's important for us to foster a culture where every voice is heard. But I want to also emphasize that as leaders, we must do better. We must ensure that respect and inclusion are not just buzzwords, but real commitments. A few heads nodded around the table, and Harold felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. Maybe his words had made an impact after all. Harold, Victor continued, his gaze returning to the gardener, your bravery today is commendable. It reminds us all that we need to listen to each other more actively. How can we, as a company, better support you and your colleagues? Harold was taken aback by the directness of Victor's question. It was not something he had anticipated. I think creating more opportunities for open dialogue would help, Harold suggested, his confidence growing. We need to have regular check-ins where everyone can share their experiences and feel heard. Victor nodded, his expression thoughtful. That's a great idea. Implementing a more structured feedback mechanism could be beneficial. We can work on establishing monthly meetings where all employees can voice their ideas and concerns. Harold felt a rush of warmth, made a difference not just for himself, but for everyone at Titan Corp. And in that moment, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that change was not only possible but already underway. In the days following Harold's powerful speech at Titan Corp, a palpable shift began to sweep through the sprawling corporate landscape. The office buzzed with a newfound energy as employees engaged in conversations that had long been stifled under the weight of hierarchy and unspoken fears. Harold, once merely the gardener, now stood as a beacon of hope and change. Harold arrived at the office early each morning, the crisp air filled with the scent of fresh grass and blooming flowers. He found himself reflecting on the impact of his words from the meeting, replaying the moments in his mind. With every interaction, he noticed a difference in how his colleagues regarded him. They greeted him with nods of respect, smiles that held a sense of shared understanding. It felt as if a collective sigh of relief had been released, and the burden of unspoken grievances was beginning to lift. One morning, as he tended to a patch of colorful daisies, Sophia approached him, a determined look on her face. "Harold," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and urgency, "we need to do something more. Your speech inspired me. It's time we put words into action." "Action?" Harold echoed, wiping his brow and glancing up at her. "What do you have in mind?" "I think we should create a recognition program," she suggested, her eyes sparkling. "One that truly celebrates the contributions of every employee here, regardless of their position. We can call it Stories of Employees. It will be a platform where everyone can share their experiences and achievements. What do you think?" Harold's heart swelled at the idea. "That sounds wonderful, Sophia. But how do we even start?" "We gather a team," she replied confidently. "We can invite people from different departments, and together, we can brainstorm how to implement it. We need to show the management that this is important." Nodding, Harold felt a surge of optimism. "Let's do it. Let's make sure everyone feels valued. Everyone deserves to have their story heard." Within days, they had assembled a diverse group of employees who shared their own stories of feeling overlooked or undervalued. The team met in the break room, a cozy space adorned with plants and a large window that let in the morning sun. The atmosphere was charged with enthusiasm as they brainstormed ideas. "Maybe we should have a monthly meeting," suggested Lisa from HR, her curly hair bouncing as she spoke. "We could invite an employee to share their story, and then allow others to ask questions or share similar experiences." "Great idea, Lisa," Sophia encouraged. "That way, we can foster a sense of community. It's not just about recognition, it's about connection." As the discussion progressed, Harold chimed in, "And we could create a bulletin board in the lobby where we can post these stories. That way, everyone can see and reflect on the diverse experiences here at Titan Corp." "That's perfect," exclaimed Mark from IT. "It will serve as a constant reminder that every role is vital and that we are all part of something bigger." The team worked tirelessly over the next few weeks, drafting proposals, creating flyers, and preparing for their presentation to the upper management. Harold felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. Each meeting reinforced his belief that everyone's voice mattered and could lead to meaningful change. Finally, the day of the presentation arrived. They gathered in one of the larger conference rooms, the air thick with anticipation. Harold stood at the front, flanked by Sophia and a few other team members. Victor Ashford sat at the head of the long table, flanked by several executives, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "Thank you all for being here," Harold began, his voice steady, but soft. "Today, we want to share a vision that comes from the heart of Titan Corp, our employees." Sophia took over, her energy infectious. "We've all seen how important it is to feel valued and respected. Our proposal is simple: to launch the Stories of Employees program, where we can celebrate our diverse backgrounds, experiences, and contributions. We believe that by sharing our stories, we can foster a culture of appreciation and inclusivity." Victor leaned forward, intrigued. "And how do you envision this working?" he inquired, his tone serious but open. Harold stepped in, his heart racing, but his resolve unwavering. "We propose monthly meetings where a chosen employee can share their journey. It will be an opportunity for others to engage, ask questions, and truly understand the diverse fabric of our workforce. Additionally, We'll create a bulletin board in the lobby to highlight these stories, allowing everyone to reflect on the value each person brings to our company." The executives exchanged glances, considering the proposal. "And what do you think would be the impact of this program?" Victor asked, his expression thoughtful. "I believe it will enhance morale," Harold replied confidently. "When employees feel recognized and appreciated, they are more motivated to contribute positively to the company. It builds a sense of belonging, which is crucial in any workplace." Sophia added, "We've seen how these conversations can change perspectives. It's not just about the stories themselves. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels safe to share and connect." As Harold spoke, he noticed Victor's expression soften. The room was silent, the weight of their words hanging in the air. Executives shifted in their seats, clearly contemplating the potential implications of such a program. "Thank you for this presentation," Victor finally said, breaking the silence. "You presented a compelling case for change. I'd like to discuss this further and see how we can implement it effectively." Harold and Sophia exchanged a glance, their hearts racing with hope. "Thank you, Victor," Harold replied, unable to hide the smile creeping onto his face. "We're excited about the possibility of making a difference." The meeting concluded with a sense of optimism. Harold felt a renewed sense of purpose as they left the conference room, the weight of his previous humiliation slowly dissipating. He had transformed his pain into a powerful movement, one that would ripple through the halls of Titan Corp and beyond. In the days that followed, the energy in the office was palpable. Employees were eager to participate in the upcoming program, sharing ideas and stories that inspired laughter and tears alike. Harold found himself at the center of it all, not just as the gardener, but as a catalyst for change. One afternoon, as Harold and Sophia sat in the break room, discussing logistics for the program, Lisa entered with a grin. "I just spoke to Victor. He's fully on board. He wants to announce the program at the next company-wide meeting." "That's fantastic news," Sophia exclaimed, jumping up in excitement. "This is happening." Harold felt a swell of pride. "It's not just about us anymore. It's about everyone in this company. We're creating something lasting." As the days turned into weeks, the momentum grew. Employees began submitting their stories, each one unique and powerful. Harold watched as his colleagues, once hesitant to share their experiences, found their voices. Stories of perseverance, triumph, and overcoming adversity filled the air, resonating with everyone in the office. Harold and Sophia spent hours curating the submissions, ensuring that each story would be shared and celebrated. They laughed over coffee breaks, discussing the impact they were making and the friendships blooming among their colleagues. "This is just the beginning," Sophia said one day, her eyes shining with determination. "We're going to change the culture here, Harold." "I believe it," Harold replied, a smile spreading across his face. The thought of being part of such a movement filled him with purpose and joy. With each passing day, Harold felt the weight of his past humiliation lift, replaced by a sense of belonging and respect that he had longed for. He was no longer just a gardener. He was a part of something much larger, a community that valued every individual and their unique contributions. And as he tended to the gardens of Titan Corp, he knew that he was nurturing not just the plants, but the very spirit of the company itself. The day of the first event for the Employee Stories project dawned bright and hopeful. Harold arrived early at the Titan Corp headquarters, the sun casting a warm glow over the meticulously manicured lawns he had nurtured over the years. Today felt different. There was a palpable sense of excitement in the air that he hadn't felt before. As he walked through the lobby, the echoes of laughter and chatter from the employees preparing for the event filled him with a sense of purpose. In the large conference room, tables were arranged in a semicircle, adorned with flowers Harold had personally picked from the garden. Each table had a small sign that read, "Everyone has a story." He took a moment to adjust the flowers, ensuring they were just right. It was a small touch, but to him, it signified the care and attention he wanted to bring to the event. Sophia entered the room, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Harold, "This looks amazing," she exclaimed, her voice bubbling with excitement as she surveyed the setup. "You've really outdone yourself." Harold smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Thank you, Sophia. I just wanted to make sure everyone feels welcomed. This is their moment." As employees began to trickle in, Harold noticed the nervousness in their faces. Many had expressed their hesitation about sharing their stories. He understood. It wasn't easy to open up in front of colleagues, especially in a corporate environment where vulnerability often felt like a liability. Sophia stood up and clapped her hands to gather attention. "Everyone, if I could have your attention, please. I know many of you may feel a bit anxious about sharing today, but let's remember why we're here. This is a safe space, and we're all here to celebrate one another." The room fell silent, and Harold caught a glimpse of anxious faces softening as Sophia's words resonated. "Let's start with a few ground rules," she continued. "Respect each other's stories, listen actively, and most importantly, support one another. Who would like to go first?" Harold felt a surge of nervous energy as he looked around the room. A young woman named Lisa, a graphic designer, raised her hand hesitantly. "I guess I'll go. I've been thinking about this a lot," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Great. Come on up, Lisa," Sophia encouraged, gesturing toward the front of the room. Lisa stood up, her cheeks flushed with a mix of excitement and fear. She walked to the front, clutching her notes tightly. Taking a deep breath, she began, "So, I've worked at Titan Corp for about 3 years now. When I started, I felt like I didn't belong. I was the youngest in my department, and I often felt overlooked." Harold watched intently as Lisa shared her story, her vulnerability drawing everyone in. "I remember one day, during a team meeting, I pitched an idea for a project, and everyone just stared at me. It was like I had said something ridiculous. But then one of my colleagues, Mark, spoke up and said he thought it was a great idea. That moment changed everything for me. It made me realize that my voice mattered." As she spoke, Harold noticed nods of agreement from the audience. When Lisa finished, the room erupted in applause. Harold felt a warmth wash over him, knowing that sharing stories was indeed powerful. The next to stand up was Mark, the very colleague Lisa. Heal and connect people. Sophia approached him, her eyes bright. "Harold, you were amazing today. I'm so proud of us for creating this space." "Thank you, Sophia," Harold replied, a smile creeping onto his face. "It feels good to be heard." "It does," she agreed, her voice softening. "Let's make sure we do this regularly. Everyone deserves to have their voice heard." As they began to clean up the room together, Harold felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had always taken pride in his work, but now he felt a deeper connection to Titan Corp and its people. The stories shared today were not just tales of triumphs and struggles. They were threads that wove the fabric of the company together, creating a rich tapestry of respect and dignity. It was a day Harold would never forget, a day when the walls of silence began to crumble and the seeds of change were sown. In the days that followed Harold's courageous speech, a palpable shift began to take root within the Titan Corp headquarters. The usual corporate hum of productivity was now interspersed with whispered conversations about respect, recognition, and the importance of every individual's contribution to the company's success. One bright Monday morning, the conference room was buzzing with anticipation. Employees were taking their seats, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and hope. Victor Ashford, the aloof CEO who had once belittled Harold, stood at the front, a stack of documents clutched in his hands. The atmosphere felt different. There was an eagerness to engage, a willingness to listen that hadn't been there before. "Thank you all for coming," Victor began, clearing his throat as he glanced at the faces before him. "I know we usually focus on numbers and quarterly goals in these meetings, but today is going to be a bit different." He paused, looking down at the papers, then back up, his gaze firm. "I want to address something that's been weighing on my mind ever since last week's event." A murmur of interest rippled through the room. Employees leaned forward, their attention fully on the CEO. Victor took a deep breath, his voice steadying. I want to apologize for my behavior at the gala. My comments toward Harold were not only inappropriate, but they were also disrespectful to every person in this room who works tirelessly for Titan Corp. I lost sight of what truly matters. A few heads nodded, and Harold felt a mix of emotions flood through him. It was a strange sensation to be acknowledged in such a public forum, especially after the humiliation he had endured. He remained silent, unsure how to react. Victor continued, "In the wake of our conversation, I've come to realize that we need to foster a culture of respect and inclusion. We need to ensure that every voice is heard and valued." As Victor spoke, Harold's mind drifted back to the moments leading up to the gala. He remembered the weight of the laughter that had echoed around him, the sting of Victor's words. But now, it seemed the tide was turning. He could feel a shift in the energy of the room's collective desire for change. "Today," Victor said, "we will be implementing new guidelines aimed at promoting an environment where everyone's contributions are recognized and appreciated." He held up the documents in his hand. These guidelines include a new employee recognition program and a commitment to regular feedback sessions where every team member can share their thoughts and experiences. As Victor laid out the plans, Harold exchanged glances with Sophia, who sat a few seats away. She smiled, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "This is just the beginning," she whispered to him, and he nodded, feeling a sense of unity among the employees as they began to discuss the changes. "Can we get a written copy of these guidelines?" one employee asked, a hint of optimism in her voice. "It would help us understand how we can contribute to this new culture." "Absolutely," Victor replied, his expression softening. "I want this to be a collaborative effort. Your feedback is essential as we move forward. We're not just implementing changes, we're building a community together." Harold felt a swell of pride as he listened to the discussions unfolding around him. The room was alive with ideas, and he could sense that many employees were eager to share their thoughts on how to make Titan Corp a better place to work. It was a stark contrast to the silence that often filled the space during previous meetings. As the meeting progressed, a few employees stood to share their experiences, stories of feeling overlooked or undervalued. Each voice added another layer to the collective narrative of Titan Corp, and with every story, Harold felt more empowered. He realized that the pain he had felt was not his alone. Many others had experienced similar struggles. "Thank you for sharing that," Victor said, nodding appreciatively at a woman named Linda who had just recounted her journey of being a single mother while working at the company. "Your strength and resilience are inspiring, and it's stories like yours that remind us why we need to make these changes." Harold couldn't help but feel a warmth in his chest. This was a moment of transformation, not just for him, but for everyone who had ever felt small or insignificant in the vast corporate machine. After the meeting adjourned, Harold lingered in the conference room, deep in thought. He had a lot to digest, and there was a stirring within him that he couldn't quite place. Sophia approached him, her expression vibrant with enthusiasm. "Did you see that? People are really starting to speak up. This is incredible." "It is," Harold agreed, smiling softly. "But I can't shake the feeling that there's more to be done. I think we need to keep this momentum going, to build on what we've started." Sophia's eyes widened with excitement. "Exactly. We should propose a program that highlights employee stories, like a spotlight series that celebrates our diverse experiences and contributions." Harold nodded, feeling inspired. That could really help foster a sense of community. We could invite employees to share their journeys, their challenges, and their successes. It would show everyone that we're all in this together. With a newfound sense of purpose, they began brainstorming ideas on how to present the concept to Victor and the executive team. They envisioned a monthly event where employees could gather, share their stories, and celebrate one another's achievements. After all, every individual had a unique narrative that contributed to the fabric of Titan Corp. As days turned into weeks, the culture at Titan Corp began to shift dramatically. The new guidelines were implemented, and the atmosphere became increasingly collaborative. Employees felt emboldened to voice their opinions, and the once stifling corporate environment transformed into a space of creativity and respect. Harold found himself rejuvenated. His passion for his work ignited anew. He spent his days tending to the gardens with a sense of pride, knowing that each flower and shrub he nurtured was part of something larger. He often saw Sophia during breaks, and they'd discuss ideas for their proposed program, laughing and sharing stories about their experiences in the company. One afternoon, after a particularly successful meeting with the management team about their recognition program, Harold took a moment to reflect. He pulled out a small notebook he kept in his pocket, filled with sketches and notes about his dreams of becoming a landscape designer. As he flipped through the pages, a sense of longing washed over him. He had always dreamed of creating beautiful outdoor spaces, yet he had never taken the steps to pursue that passion. The support from his colleagues and the newfound culture of respect at Titan Corp stirred something inside him. Maybe it was time to explore this dream. With a determined heart, Harold made a decision. He would not only advocate for the recognition program, but also begin to share his artistic visions with the team. If Titan Corp was truly committed to fostering a culture of appreciation and collaboration, he could contribute in ways he had only ever imagined. He approached Sophia the next day, excitement bubbling within him. "I've been thinking about our program, and I want to include something about creative expression, maybe allow employees to showcase their talents beyond just their job roles." Sophia's face lit up. "That's a brilliant idea, Harold. We could create a section in our program dedicated to artistic contributions. It would encourage people to share their passions and showcase their skills." "I've been sketching some designs for the garden spaces around the office," Harold admitted, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. "I'd love to present those ideas as part of our recognition program." "Let's do it," Sophia exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. "We'll approach Victor together. This could really make an impact." As they prepared for their meeting with Victor, Harold felt a sense of anticipation mixed with apprehension. He had never presented his artistic ideas in a professional setting before, but this was different. He had the support of his colleagues, and he believed in the vision they were creating together. Finally, the day arrived when they would present their ideas. Harold stood outside Victor's office, his heart racing. "You ready?" Sophia asked, placing a reassuring hand on his back. "As ready as I'll ever be," Harold replied, taking a deep breath. They entered the office, and Victor looked up from his desk, a welcoming smile spreading across his face. "Harold, Sophia, it's great to see you both. What do you have for me today?" he asked, gesturing for them to take a seat. With a shared glance of encouragement, Harold began to outline their proposal for the employee recognition program, emphasizing the importance of celebrating individual stories and contributions. "We believe it's crucial to not only recognize work accomplishments, but also to honor the diverse experiences that shape us as a team," he said passionately. As they presented their ideas, Harold felt a surge of confidence. He shared his vision for the garden spaces, explaining how art and nature could intertwine to create a more inviting and inspiring work environment. Victor listened intently, nodding along as Sophia chimed in with her thoughts. When they finished, there was a moment of silence as Victor processed their proposal. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. "This is an innovative approach, and I love the idea of incorporating creative expression into our program. It aligns perfectly with the culture we're trying to build here." Harold's heart soared at Victor's words. "Thank you, Victor. We believe it can make a real difference in how we connect as a team." "I want you both to lead this initiative," Victor said, a smile breaking across his face. "Let's get this rolling. We'll schedule a company-wide meeting to announce it and begin implementation." As they left Victor's office, Harold felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment while Harold stood at the front of the sleek, modern conference room, his heart racing as he faced the Titan Corp board of directors. The walls were adorned with high-tech displays, showcasing the company's latest innovations. But today, the focus was solely on him. He took a deep breath, the scent of polished wood and fresh coffee filling the air. This was his moment, his chance to demonstrate that a gardener could also envision the beauty of landscapes that extended beyond the flowers and plants he tended. "Good morning, everyone," Harold began, his voice steady despite the butterflies dancing in his stomach. He glanced around the table, noting the familiar faces of the executives who had once seemed so intimidating. Victor Ashford, the CEO, was seated at the head, his expression unreadable, but there was a flicker of acknowledgement in his eyes. "Today, I'm here to share my vision for the future of our outdoor spaces at Titan Corp." He clicked the remote and the first slide appeared, showcasing a vibrant image of a lush garden filled with native plants and sustainable features. As you all know, our company has a commitment to sustainability. I believe our outdoor spaces should reflect that commitment, not just in our products, but in our very environment. Imagine a redesign that not only enhances the natural beauty of our campus, but also serves as a sanctuary for our employees, a place where they can relax, recharge, and reconnect with nature. The executives listened intently, some nodding while others scribbled notes. Harold felt a surge of confidence as he continued. By incorporating native plants that require less water and maintenance, we can reduce our environmental footprint. I propose creating a series of gardens that celebrate our local ecology, using plants that thrive in our climate. This will not only beautify our space, but also provide habitats for local wildlife. He advanced to the next slide, showing a conceptual design of the outdoor area, complete with walking paths, seating areas, and vibrant flower beds. In addition to the ecological benefits, we can create spaces for collaboration. Imagine outdoor meeting areas surrounded by greenery, where employees can gather for brainstorming sessions or simply take a break. Research shows that exposure to nature can boost creativity and reduce stress. Victor leaned forward, a glimmer of interest in his eyes. "Harold, this is impressive. Tell us more about how you envision implementing these changes." Harold smiled, encouraged by the engagement. "I've already spoken with some of our staff about this idea, and there's a lot of enthusiasm. We could create a volunteer program where employees can participate in the gardening process, fostering a sense of ownership and community. It's about building a culture of respect, not just for each other, but for the environment we inhabit." As he spoke, Harold felt the weight of the past few days lift. The humiliation he had endured at the gala was fading into the background, replaced by a sense of purpose. He was no longer just a gardener. He was a visionary. He sketched out how the project could be phased in, beginning with small changes that could lead to significant transformations over time. And, he added, "We can organize workshops on sustainable gardening practices for our employees, encouraging them to take these principles home. This would not only enhance their well-being, but also strengthen the Titan Corp community." Just as he was getting into the flow of his presentation, he noticed Victor shifting in his seat. The CEO had been watching him closely, a contemplative expression on his face. Finally, Victor stood up, interrupting Harold's train of thought. "Wait a moment, Harold," he said, his voice firm yet respectful. "I have something to say." The room fell silent as all eyes turned toward him. "I appreciate the passion you've brought into this presentation. It resonates with me more than you know." Harold's heart skipped a beat, a mix of anxiety and anticipation swirling within him. Victor continued, "You see, my grandfather was a gardener too. He taught me that every plant has its place and purpose, just like every person in a company. I've spent years trying to prove myself in the corporate world, and I let my insecurities manifest in that inappropriate joke at the gala." The admission hung in the air, and Harold's breath caught in his throat. He had not expected such vulnerability from the CEO. "My grandfather always said that those who work with their hands are just as important as those who work with their minds. I lost sight of that and allowed my ambition to overshadow my respect for the people who make this company what it is." Victor's gaze shifted to Harold, and there was a sincerity in his eyes that Harold had not seen before. "Harold, I want to apologize for my behavior. I was wrong to belittle you or anyone else in this company. Your vision for our outdoor spaces is exactly what we need, and I see the potential for you to lead this initiative." Harold felt a rush of emotions, relief flooding through him. "Thank you, Victor. I appreciate that. I only want to create a space that reflects our values and brings our employees together." Victor nodded, a smile breaking through. "We need leaders who understand the importance of every role in our company, and you have shown that today. I want to offer you a position in management within the landscaping department. You'll not only have the authority to implement your vision, but also to inspire others to recognize the value of their contributions." Stunned, Harold could hardly process the words. "Are you serious?" "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Victor encouraged gently. "You've earned it." As the words sank in, Harold's heart swelled with gratitude and disbelief. "Yes, I would love that opportunity. I want to make a difference." Victor extended his hand, and Harold shook it firmly, sealing a commitment that would change the trajectory of his life. The room erupted in applause from the other executives, each one recognizing the significance of this moment. It was more than just a promotion. It was a shift in the company culture, a recognition of the respect and dignity that every employee deserved. As he stepped back, Harold felt a profound sense of accomplishment wash over him. The journey from the humiliation he'd faced to this moment of triumph was nothing short of remarkable. His heart raced as he thought of the possibilities ahead, not just for himself, but for all the employees at Titan Corp. "Let's get to work," he said, feeling the weight of his new role settling comfortably on his shoulders. "I can't wait to start making these changes." Victor smiled, his eyes glimmering with enthusiasm. "Together, we'll create a workplace that values every contribution and showcases the beauty of collaboration. Thank you for your courage, Harold." As the meeting adjourned, Harold stepped out of the room, a renewed sense of purpose guiding him. He glanced back at Victor, who was speaking with some of the other executives, and felt a surge of hope. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, not only for him, but for the entire company. In the weeks that followed, Harold immersed himself in his new role, working closely with Sophia and other employees to bring the vision to life. They organized brainstorming sessions, engaged in community projects, and fostered a culture of appreciation. The gardens began to flourish, not just with plants, but with the spirit of collaboration and respect that Harold had always envisioned. As he wandered through the blossoming gardens, Harold marveled at how far he had come. The laughter of employees echoed around him, and he knew that his fight for dignity had sparked a change that would resonate for years to come. The legacy of respect and inclusion was now woven into the very fabric of Titan Corp, and he was proud to be a part of it.